Have you ever said something like, I have many homeworks and gotten corrected, but you weren't really sure why? It's a super common trip up for English learners, and it all comes down to countable and uncountable nouns. But don't you worry, we are going to make this whole concept crystal clear. Let's dive in. So, what's the big secret here? Well, it really just boils down to one simple question. Seriously, once you learn to ask yourself this one little question, you'll be able to spot the difference between these nouns in a heartbeat. Okay, let's look at a classic example. I don't have many money. Does that sound right to you? It probably feels a little weird, right? By the end of this quick explainer, you're going to understand exactly why it's wrong and, more importantly, how to get it right every single time. Right, so the key to fixing that many money problem is just realizing that English nouns are kind of split into two different teams. Once you know which team a noun plays for, the rules for how to use it become so much clearer. First up, we've got countable nouns. And honestly, the name says it all. These are just things you can count as individual units. They can be singular, like a book, or they can be plural, like 5 books. It's as simple as that. And this shows it perfectly. You can have 1 pen, 2 pens, 3 pens, 100 pens, you get the idea. The main test is this. If you can stick a number in front of it and it still makes sense, you're looking at a countable noun. Now check this out. On the last, you've got all the countable things. Eggs, girls, pencils. You can count each one separately. But look at the right side. These are the uncountable nouns. Cheese, butter, salt. We don't really say 1 cheese or 2 salts, do we? We treat them as a whole, like a substance. You'd say a piece of cheese or some salt. Getting this difference down is absolutely crucial. So, now that we can tell the difference between these two types of nouns, let's look at the words we use to talk about how much of something there is. This is where we get back to fixing that sentence from the beginning. Okay, this table, this is your new best friend for this topic. These words, some, any, and no, are called quantifiers. They tell us about the amount of something. Let's just quickly run through the rules. We use some in positive sentences and also for polite offers. We use any when we're asking questions or making negative sentences, and no is the clever one. It gives a sentence a negative meaning without using the word not. Let's see them in action. Here we go. There are some apples on the table. This is just a simple positive statement. It's a fact. There's a certain amount of apples there, so we use some. And this works for both countable things like apples and uncountable things like water. Now see how this works here? Would you like some water? This is a polite offer. So even though it's technically a question, because we're offering something, we stick with some. It's the same for requests, like, can I have some coffee, please? And here is any doing its job. Are there any students in the school? See, this isn't an offer or a request. It's just a regular, general question. That's the perfect time to use any. It also works for negative sentences like, I don't have any students. Okay, this slide shows a really neat trick. No and not any often mean the exact same thing. The sentence, there is no milk, uses a positive verb, is, with the word no. But you could also say, there isn't any milk, which uses a negative verb, isn't, with any. Both sentences are totally correct and mean the same thing. It's just 2 different ways of building the idea. All right, you've seen the rules, you've seen the examples, now it is your turn. Let's do a quick challenge just to see if you've got this down. Ready? So, on this slide, you'll see a list of 10 nouns. Your job is to decide if they're countable, put a C, or non-count, which is also called uncountable, put an N. Go ahead and pause this explainer, jot down your answers, and then just hit play when you're ready to check them. Okay, the answers are up. So, how'd you do? The first 4, shopper, bargain, price, market, those are all countable. But then number 5, livestock, that one's kind of tricky. It's a collective noun for farm animals, so it's uncountable. Same goes for produce, that's a category for fruits and veggies, and jewelry for things like rings and necklaces. And fish is another tricky one. You can count 2 fish in a tank, but when you're talking about food on your plate, it's uncountable. Well done if you got those right. Fantastic work. We have covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time, so let's just wrap this all up by summarizing the most important takeaways from our little session here. So let's boil it all down. The most important thing to remember is that first question. Can I count it? If the answer is yes, like with pens, it's countable. If it's no, like with water, it's uncountable. From there, the rules are pretty straightforward. Use some for positives and offers, and any for questions and negatives. And now you know why I don't have many money is wrong. Money is uncountable, so you should say, I don't have much money, or I don't have any money. See? It all connects. And that brings us to the end. But hey, the learning doesn't have to stop here. Now that you have the rules, start thinking about other words that might be a little confusing. What about advice or information? Can you count them? Applying these rules to new words you come across is really the best way to master them. Thanks for joining me.